Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast. Here at the fountains at the Bellagio. Fountains are firing, and boys, that can only mean one thing.
What's that?
Tuesdays with Brady.
Oh,
gotta love it. Gotta love it.
Let's go.
Brady, Tyrone Quinn, Lige the Legend Doozable, Will Brinson. All right, let's get to it, boys.
It's the best intro.
It really was. Great intro.
I should have seen that coming, honestly.
I'm done. I'm out. That's all I have to do.
Hang it up.
Vulcan stands on it.
All right, here we go. We're talking to edges in terms of coaches, players on both sides. Super Bowl 58, Kansas City Chiefs. Who are they playing?
The San Francisco
There it is.
49ers.
You had to think about that for a second.
The Hounds are firing. They got me.
All right, let's get right into it. So coaches, Andy Reid versus Kyle Shanahan, of course. And Brinson, we have a bit that we've done for years on the Pick Six Podcast. You want to do the dance, or should we just say the words?
Andy Reid off the bye. Andy Reid off the bye. And you get a bye in the Super Bowl, don't you, Brady?
Yeah.
You do. I mean, sort of. Kind of a bye, right?
Yeah, kind of.
I guess that's how we'd call it that. But both teams get a bye, so it's a little more equal.
The Chiefs got an extra bye with that Ravens offense. Am I right?
Oh, my God. Shots fired.
So,
Well, the interesting thing about that, right, because people always make a big fuss about Andy Reid off the bye. I believe he's 28-3. But let's not forget, in games where he's off the bye, but the other team is off the bye, he's 3-3.
That's right.
So that's something to think about.
The playing field.
And he hasn't been very good against the spread recently off the bye either, which is kind of.
But they're good as an underdog. So let's just keep throwing out ways. We'll just contradict each other the entire show.
all right, well, let's take it a step further.
Pat Mahomes off the bye.
Right.
Like, if we're giving an edge, let's just not talk about from the rest standpoint, just from the experience standpoint.
Yeah.
You know, Andy Reid's been here before. I saw someone talk about this earlier. I don't know if it was one of you guys who tweeted it out, but like, is Kyle Shanahan at the Andy Reid phase when he was in Philly, as far as getting to the Super Bowls, not able to win it yet?
I like that.
I think the difference too, though, when you incorporate Andy Reid as part of an edge and all this, you have to include Steve Spagnuolo. He's been phenomenal on this stage as a defensive coordinator, and obviously that's part of how we're talking about Andy Reid. It's the staff too, and that edge that I think the staff has in Kansas City over the San Francisco 49ers. But I do think it's close. I mean, Kyle Shanahan's been as good as anyone offensively as far as putting up plays and so forth to make some hay. So I think it's a little closer than people realize.
And I think too that with Andy Reid, and I've talked about this, sort of comparing him to Phil Mickelson. Phil Mickelson won his first major, and then they started flying off the shelves, right?
Yeah.
Like he started winning, because the pressure is relieved. It's a lot easier to win. And I think Kyle Shanahan is dealing with that pressure that Andy Reid was facing, before he actually broke through and won one with Patrick Mahomes. And the reality is, there's more pressure on Kyle Shanahan than anyone else in this entire game when it comes on Sunday. Having said that, I still think that Kyle Shanahan is probably getting a bad rap when it comes to people saying, oh, he can't win the big one. I mean, he's gotten to the big one several times.
Right.
We'll find out in a second. And by the way, this segment brought to you by America's Navy. Shout out to our servicemen and women all over the globe.
Oh, yeah.
Legion, let me ask you this. And Brady mentioned Steve Spagnuolo, one of the best defensive coordinators ever.
Ooh. When you think about it, right, let's not forget what he did to that perfect team, the New England Patriots, right, and how he was able to slow Tom Brady and Randy Moss and the rest of those guys down. So I would have to say he is one of those guys. I think it's something to be said when the players on your team are wearing "In Spags We Trust" T-shirts, right? And I played in this defense my rookie year. It's a complicated defense, Brady. Like, there's a lot of mental strain on each player, and as defensive players, most of the time, we just want to play free and loose, right? We don't have to think a lot, but in this defense, Steve Spagnuolo makes you think, and I think it's something to be said for his players to play at the level that they're playing at when he's taxing them so much mentally.
I think you can make the case that if Patrick Mahomes is the best thing to ever happen to Andy Reid, then Steve Spagnuolo going 10-38 with the Rams is the second best thing to ever happen to Andy Reid. Because of that record, because of how poorly he did in St. Louis, he hasn't gotten looks as a retread candidate for a head coaching position. And that means he's sticking around and really allowing this defense to flourish.
I would just say this. He has to be breathing somewhat of a sigh of relief in the sense of not having to deal with a quarterback like Lamar Jackson. Yep. With the dual threat ability, the way they had to go about designing ways to keep not only one spy, but sometimes two spies out there to try to keep him within the pocket, force him to throw the football. Different challenge this week, though, because then you have the Swiss Army knives like Debo, like Christian McCaffrey, like Kyle Juszczyk, so many players who can do so many different things. So different challenge, but Steve Spagnuolo will have his Rolodex of blitzes, his disguise of coverages and things that he wants to do. to try to take really some of those players out of the game. Now, I don't know if it's going to be Ayuk or if it's going to be Kittle or whatever it is. Usually they're trying to eliminate someone within that pass game.
And that's the chess matchup, right, between Steve Spagnuolo and Kyle Shanahan, because Kyle Shanahan is one of the best at pre-snap motion, right? And you talked about Steve Spagnuolo. Exotic blitzes show you this way, come this way, will travel to Jarius Sneed. But will he do that this week with so much pre-snap motion? That is something to watch in this game.
So Andy Reid has 25 playoff wins, only 6 behind Bill Belichick. Brady,
that's crazy.
If he wins this game, where are we placing him among the pantheon of greatest coaches all time?
I mean, he's up there. He's still not obviously at Bill Belichick's level, probably not Chuck Noll and some of those you throw in that conversation. But I think he's in that next group that you talk about who's got 3 Super Bowls. And you look at, obviously, his track record of getting there. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that always stood out to me about Bill Belichick and the course of the Patriots is they went to 9.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. It's ridiculous. They were there for, 19 seasons together? They could have 9 Super Bowls?
They could have gone 9-0 or 1-8 in those.
Eli Manning.
It's hard enough to get to the playoffs, let alone get there and then make a run.
Right.
And the success that Andy Reid has been ridiculous so far with Kansas City, but his body of work is up there. Obviously, as a Hall of Famer, but also as one of the best.
I think right now you would say he is a slam dunk top 10 coach of all time. And if he wins on Sunday, then I think you push him to the top 5.
I'm probably going to say something that nobody agrees with here.
Here we go.
I think if he wins this one, he has to be considered, if not the best head coach of all time, the second best head coach of all time. And I say this, right, because we always people are so reactionary,
the
right?
greatest offensive head coach of all time.
I'm talking about head coach, period, right? Because, and this is why I say that, right? When you look at his body of work, like you talked about, let's not forget, not only is he having the success that he had with Kansas City, 6 straight AFC championship games, 4 Super Bowls, let's not forget when he was with the Philadelphia Eagles. Great. He had a run of 4 straight NFC championship games and a Super Bowl appearance. Let's not forget when Bill Belichick was with the Browns, it didn't look good, right? He had a sub 500 record. So I always like to look at somebody's body of total work. For him to do it, not just at one team, Brady, but 2. I get you looking at me crazy.
I get that, but come on.
He's on it multiple places at a high level.
You can make a case for Joe Gibbs, who won 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks. Go give Joe Gibbs Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. He would have probably gladly accepted that and been able to make that work too.
But nobody was trying to draft Patrick Mahomes until Andy Reid was. So you have to give him credit.
Well, we don't necessarily know someone else wasn't going to trade up too, right? He got
but would he have been Patrick Mahomes who he is right now?
No. Maybe not. We don't know that. But we also don't know if Tom Brady would be Tom Brady without Bill Belichick. So we can go down that rabbit hole. We're never going to answer that question. My whole point is I think it becomes really difficult because of the different eras. You look at Chuck Noll, for example, who had so much success over those 4 Super Bowls. What, they have 88 players?
It's 80 players were this is
those 4 teams. Yeah. That's what I'm saying is nowadays that's a year or two.
Yeah,
there's so much turnover on your staff and on your roster. Every coach has had different challenges. There's no doubt though Andy Reid, I think to your point, would probably be considered top 5, top 4.
All right, let's talk about Kyle Shanahan quickly here because we mentioned earlier that he has struggled in the biggest moments. He's only 44 years old. No one on this side is 40, as it turns out. I'll leave it at that. But he had the 28-3.
He's higher than 40.
Oh, right.
Wow.
So here you see the largest blown leads in the NFL. 28-3, the situation with the Falcons in 2016. Yeah. Shout out to Chris Hassler, our colleague, for calling Matt Ryan, our colleague, a game manager.
Oh, man.
That was nice.
Yeah, that was something else.
And then in 2019, blew the 20-10 lead against the Chiefs. The Chiefs came back strong in the 4th quarter and won that game. Yeah. That said, Brenton, the last 2 games, Brock Purdy has helped lead this team from come from behind victories. Where are you on Kyle Shanahan and the moniker that he might choke in the biggest?
Well, I mean, here's the thing: is to give up the biggest leads in Super Bowl, and the 2 biggest leads coughed up in Super Bowl history.
Yeah, that's right.
You have to have the 2 biggest leads in Super Bowl. You have to have those leads in order to give them up, and that means that Kyle Shanahan has done a tremendous job game planning his offenses for those big games. So I don't know if it's so much a chokes in the big moment as things get a little snug. Once the game gets late.
Let's call it what it is. The defense has to make some plays too at that point. Yeah. And on top of it, look, I'm not going to take all the blame off in those collapses. Sometimes you got to play better complementary football.
Correct.
Sometimes you got to find a way of, making the right decision.
He wasn't even head coach for one of them, by the way.
Right. I mean, the Atlanta Falcons, it's he's not making all of that. So I don't really read too much into it. I mean, they're looking at this matchup, this specific game this year. They're not worried about the past.
And by the way, when you win, it's over. No, it's
over. That's right. Well, I look at it like this, right? Yeah, he struggled in those 2 Super Bowls, like you talked about, Brenton. One, he was just a coordinator, wasn't even the head coach. And if you go back to that 2020 Super Bowl versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's not forget, they were up, like you said, 10 points, I believe, going into the fourth quarter, only about 8 minutes left. And they had an opportunity after Kansas City cut it to 3, right? Raheem Mostert comes out, first down, runs 5 yards, then 2 passes after that. I think that's what a lot of people have questioned Kyle Shanahan, like the consistency in the run game, because everything is based off the run game. When you look at that 28-3 loss that they had, not 28, they were up 28-3 versus the Patriots, and then the Patriots came back. A lot of people were saying, why aren't you running the ball more in the second half? So I think this game, we'll see a change in regards to CMC, Christian McCaffrey, really featured in this game.
The thing that would concern me, though, is the game planning for the first 2 playoff games that we've seen from them hasn't been very good. Yeah. They came out, and it was too reliant on Deebo Samuel. He gets hurt, the game plan falls apart, and then in the second week, against the Lions, you come out and try and force Christian McCaffrey, and when you do get Deebo involved, the offense really takes off.
And look, Purdy didn't play great, down the stretch. He did in the second half, too. That was part of it. But I would say the last thing is the difference to me, too, is Andy Reid. Look at the second half of the AFC Championship game. People were like, oh, the Ravens shut them out. Well, KC also got more conservative. They started running the football more. They started to take more time off the clock when they try to slow down the game. So maybe that's Kyle Shanahan takes one out of Andy Reid's playbook with how they play the second half if they do have a lead.
Okay, all right, let's do a pick 6 pick. Give me a name. Which head coach you taking?
Andy Reid, off the bye.
Yeah, Andy Reid, for sure.
Andy Reid.
All right. We'll take a break when we come back. Browns rookie Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Las Vegas native, is going to join us right after this.